Has anyone ever told you that the Authorized version, also known as the King James Version, is filled with archaic words? And the reason why we need new versions is because it has archaic words, so called? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a book that I'm going to review that focuses on those so called archaic words. I think it's a must book. You got to have it, whether you're King James or not. This is a must to have. Now, the title of the book, as you can see, is Archaic Words and the Authorized Version. It was done by Mr. Laurence Vance. So let's begin by taking a look at the back cover. It says this: as suitable for reading as it is valuable for reference, this book provides an explicit and comprehensive examination of every word in the authorized version of the Bible that has been deemed archaic, obsolete, antiquated, or otherwise outmoded. The result is both fascinating and encyclopedic study of words, their meaning, derivation, usage, and significance. The thesis of this seminal work is that the authorized version is no more archaic than the daily newspaper, current magazines, and modern Bible versions. To further supplement the work and substantiate the underlying thesis, considerable reference is made not only to a wide variety of newspapers and magazines, but also to four contemporary Bible versions. This book is unique in that it seeks neither to criticize nor correct the text of the authorized version. Extensively documented with over 5,300 footnotes, the book is also enhanced by 12 appendices. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the gist of the book. Now, let's take a look at Mr. Laurence Vance. Who is this gentleman? He has a PhD. He holds degrees in history, theology, accounting, and economics. The author of 35 books. He regularly contributes articles and book reviews to both secular and religious periodicals. Dr. Vance is also a member of the Society of Biblical Literature. There you have it. Now, I actually have had the opportunity and the privilege to meet Mr. Vance many years ago when I was going to college in the DC area. And I actually met him at a political economic event. So it was definitely an event that I will always remember. And he's very educated in many fields, politics especially, and economics. I highly recommend you take a look at his website, vancepublications.com. Okay, let's begin. Archaic words and the authorized version. Okay, so first things first, in the beginning, it has a list of many of the books that he's written thus far. When you go to his website, you'll find a lot of his articles on a wide range of subjects. As you can see right here, he's discussed things such as the text of the King James Bible, the war on drugs, is a war on freedom, all the way to the other side of Calvinism. Many people actually have his book, The Other Side of Calvinism. So if you're like curious, like, oh, I've heard Laurence Vance, it sounds familiar. That's probably where you have discovered him, is through The Other Side of Calvinism. As you see here, the website is listed. I highly recommend you check it out. Very good. Of all the KJV only authors out there that I would recommend, he is probably one of the only few I would ever recommend as far as scholarly goes, most consistent. There's many that I would shun and actually stay away from, and I could see why they bring so much criticism. But anyways, Mr. Vance, he definitely, indeed, I think he's a true scholar in the real sense, and I definitely think it's worth it. I don't know if I said this, but you can actually get this on Amazon for less than $30. So it's a steal, and as you can see, it's hardbound, and it is going to last you a good while. Now, it's been through one, two, three primary printings or editions. I think that's the best way to put it. This one that I'm holding in my hand is reprinted in 2022. So definitely it's gone through a few updates, but all the updates, if anything, have added more words and more sections, if anything. If you want to reach him, there's his email, vancepub at vancepublications.com. I'm pretty sure he's pretty accessible. All right, let's get into the table of contents. Preface and introduction. Now, what he decided to do is he decided to break it down by an alphabetical order, as you could see. And so most likely there's going to be books, there's going to be words that you have been told are archaic and they're in here. There's a possibility that they may not be in here, but I'd be really shocked if it's not. And by the way, if you do run across a so-called archaic word that is not in here, I highly recommend visiting Online Etymology Dictionary. Go online. It's, I think, the #1 word history website, and there you will find all the information you need in regards to any English word. All right, epilogue. Now, the section when it comes to dependencies, or appendices, however you want to say it. This is really like the meat and potatoes, I think, of the book. This is the part of the book that I've really come to enjoy. But as you can see, we have a section about the archaic words in Authorized Version, a brief little, I guess you could say, mini essay. These are all essentially mini essays, except when you get to the archaic words in NIV, NASB, and KJV, and RSV. Now, you'll see that, NRSV, who still uses that? Again, if you look back again, this was first done in 1996. So this was a while ago. This was like at I would say at the peak of the KJV only battle. Okay, then we have the notes and the bibliography. This is the type of book that I would just wish I could just read it to you, but you probably wouldn't want to watch this video if I was to do that. But the preface alone and the introduction alone, I think, end the so-called archaic words in the King James Bible debate. They make a lot of salient he makes a lot of salient points in his preface and in his introduction, and he only solidifies that and backs it up when you begin to go look at all the so-called archaic words and you know, their definitions, the usages, the new words used in the new versions. So, anyways, what I'm going to do is, just because I don't want to bore you, but then again, I think those who are watching this video, they're going to be interested regardless. So they probably would say, David, please read it all. I'm not. I'm going to just read maybe a few sections here or there, but overall, the gist of it is this is a must. If you are one of those who does not believe King James only is justified, you must have this. If you're critical to King James Bible, if you're online YouTube and you're making comments about the King James Bible having archaic words, example would be, I guess there's a gentleman out there by the name of Mark Ward. He would be one. I mean, I wonder if he ever brought this book to anyone's attention. But anyways, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you this. And when you get this book, just be sure to read the preface, introduction. Obviously, look at the words that may be deemed archaic, but then definitely take a look at the appendices, because there you're going to find so much solid, meaty information that I think is very informative and really edifying to the King James Version. Okay, so here's what I want to take a look at is when we look at the preface, he begins by saying this, and I'm just going to read the first and second paragraph, okay? He says, the Authorized Version of the Holy Bible is the best-selling, most read, most loved, and most revered book in history, and I believe that's easily still proven till this day. This is beyond dispute, and I think that still stands today. But doesn't the Authorized Version contain archaic words? Certainly. Should we therefore replace it with something else? Certainly not. This is what is disputed. Since the publication of the Authorized Version in 1611, a steady stream of new and updated English Bibles have appeared, although many accusations have been hurled at the Authorized Version down through the years in regard to the merit of its underlying Greek text, its many supposed mistranslations, and the character of its namesake. The translators, publishers, and users of every new English translation since 1611 have charged the Authorized Version with having archaic words that render it difficult, misleading, or unintelligible. But this charge is starting to wear thin. For every 6 months, a new English translation of the Bible appears on the market with the claim that it is modern, up-to-date, contemporary language is needed to make the Bible more understandable. Nevertheless, it is apparent that the Authorized Version does contain some archaic words that need explanation. Now, he goes in, I'm going to go ahead and go to the third paragraph. This book provides an explicit and comprehensive examination of every word in the Authorized Version of the Bible that has been deemed archaic, obsolete, antiquated, or otherwise outmoded. The result is both, so that was from the back. So anyway, I'm just repeating that. Okay, so yeah, it's just so much I wish I can just read. He does a great job, especially in the introduction, because he actually offers some quotes. He gives some examples. I'll give you one right here, this one right here. Not only are there difficult sentences, but there are words used in the KJV which have passed completely out of use, so that they convey no meaning to the modern reader. All right, so there you have. He goes and he says, like, here's what they're saying, here's what the critics say, and I'm going to show you some examples that simply prove that that is an inconsistent approach. Now, I do want to share this paragraph with you, and then I'll move on to the actual the words, the definitions. There's a very insightful paragraph in here that is very revealing that a lot of people just don't know. And in fact, hold on, let me just add a little more light to this. My apologies. Okay, so right here, this paragraph, this is in the introduction too, by the way. It says, what critics of the Authorized Version fail to realize is that its archaic tone is deliberate and has the effect of elevating the language of the Bible. When the Authorized Version appeared as explained by the distinguished American philologist George Morris, this is 1801 to 1882, by the way, quote, this is what he says, it was by no means regarded as an embodiment of the everyday language of the time. On the contrary, its archaisms, its rejection of the Latinisms of the Rhemish Romanist version, and its elevation above the vulgarisms of the market and the kitchen were assailed by the same objections which are urged against it at the present moment, unquote. Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, what that's simply saying is this. By the time the King James Bible got off the press in 1611, it was already what? It was already so-called archaic, okay? Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but Mr. Noah Webster, father of the American Dictionary, he actually came up with his own edition of the King James Bible. You could say it was another, it was probably the first so-called New King James Version, where he thought to update all the archaic spelling and words, and turned out to be relegated to the graveyard of new versions. No one even know, very few people even know about it. But this was in the 1800s. He was saying the exact same thing. You kind of wonder, like, hey, man, I think it's time to. I think like apparently the commoner did not ask for it, and they did not approve of it. So it didn't work out too well. All right, so 1 second. Let me change the little lighting over here. I want to make sure everyone has some good lighting. Okay. All right, so I'll just look in this section briefly, because the reality is I mean, this is where you can find, like I said, so-called archaic words. I'll give you a few samples, and then we'll move on to I think the other section outside of the dictionary. So the first one would be like a base. Here's an example. What he does is he takes the word abase and he shows it how it's used in the scripture right here. And let's say here's Daniel 4:37. He gives you sometimes the amount of time it occurs in the Bible, in the Authorized Version, and at other times he'll also show you how the other version may utilize it. So, for example, we'll just look at the word abase. We'll use this as an example. It says Daniel 4:37. Now I Nebuchadnezzar praise and exalt and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Daniel 4:37. The word abase occurs in various forms, 9 times in the IV. Abase is found 4 times, abasing appears once, and abase occurs 4 times. The word abase comes from the French abaisser. I'm going to totally butcher that, my apologies. Quote unquote, to bring low. To abase means to reduce or lower in rank or estimation, to humble or humiliate. Of the 9 times a form of the word abase is found in AV, the NRSV retained 2, but inserts a form of the word in 4 additional places. The NASB preserves the AV reading just once, but uses a form of abase on 13 other occasions. The NKJV uses abase only 1 time, and that to follow a familiar reading in the AV. The NIV removes these words each time, substituting disturbed, humbled, in need, and forms of bring low or lower. But utilizing self-abasement in another passage, the word abase, however, is still commonly used today, and such as is the example of from the Sierra magazine. Listen to this. The mud fills them is seen as something that abases us and holds us down, unquote. So, again, that's an example of how the word abase is still used today. All right. So give me a second. I'm going to try to make sure, I want to make sure we have good lighting in here. So make sure y'all can see that. Look, that's essentially what you're going to see throughout the definitions for each so-called archaic word. Really, really informative. I think it's fun. It's one of those books that you can just have fun reading. And I enjoy that stuff. If you're a word nerd, then you're definitely going to love this book. Wherever you stand on the spectrum of the translation debate. Okay, so let's move on then. Outside of this section, move to the epilogue. I'm not going to read it, but it's definitely. I mean, it's just, you know what? I'm not going to read it because I want you to buy the book. I want you to check it out, or you can pause. But it's like, just look at the question. Does the AV contain archaic words? Certainly. But perhaps a better question should be, do contemporary publications like Time, U.S. News and World Report, the Chicago Tribune, Forbes, and the New Republic contain archaic words? As we have seen throughout the body of this work, they unquestionably do. So again, we're just kind of taking the logic and the approach that new translation supporters are taking, and we're just throwing it back at them. We're kind of judoing it, and we're saying, hey, look, if you're going to be consistent and actually stay faithful to what you're trying to say about the King James Version having archaic words, therefore we need new translations, well then surely then we can apply the same methodology to your translations. And it turns out that, wait a minute, you're guilty of the same thing. So this is really one of the things that this book does, and it does a great job doing it. Let's take a look at, again, these are just a list of words. This is just going back, if you're a word nerd, if you want to just kind of get with it. And these are the words that you see here in this section. All the words listed here, okay, all these words are the words that are defined in this book, okay? And does a great job. I just want to wonder, like, did anyone tell you that? Is anyone going around who's critical of the KJV only movement, or those who are seeking to say that the Authorized Version is filled with archaic words, aka or King James Version, therefore that we need a new translation? I mean, are they bringing this book up? I just want to know. I mean, just leave a comment. Please let me know. Archaic words in contemporary publications. He lists this out. Again, this book was released in 1996 and then updated two times after that. So as you can see, there's going to be alternating dates. So we're not going to have 2022. But again, he does a great job showing you that, hey, look, they're in publications too, and does a really, really good job. He lists it out, documents it all. You could see it, and that's again, if you're a word nerd, after you read this book, no one will ever be able to use that argument honestly against you if they're aware of what this book has to say. And then this section is super important because it actually shows archaic words that are listed in the new versions. Here's the NIV. There's a bunch of examples. You can pause that if you like. One, plowshare, wren, temperate, tetrarch, vex, wanton. That's the NIV. So as you can see, he lists archaic words that are in the NASB, even the so-called New King James Version, which is not new or King James, the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version. That is a very progressive leftist version for sure. But then he goes in more, and what he does here is he compares, well, what's the word the NIV uses that's archaic, and what's the word that the King James uses, and many times you'll see that they're either the same in weight, as far as maybe someone can deem them archaic, or the Authorized Version will actually have an easier read, excuse me, an easier word, quote unquote, to understand. So yeah, this is a great job. I don't know if you ever come across this. I mean, this is something that I'm not going to tell you about. You can get it real cheap on Amazon.com, and it's very well worth it. So let me just skip some of these, and as you can see, the author does a great job at going into the actually, let me go right here. So uniformity in translating English, goes into the archaic personal pronouns. This is very important. And explains the need for them, the thou, thine, and thee. Very, very informative book. It's a treasure indeed. It's a must. As you can see here in the notes, everything is footnoted. Everything is validated. Everything can be validated as stated. And unlike some of the other KJV authors out there that have definitely made some mistakes in their quotations, and the other side can be guilty of it too, Mr. Vance is, I would say, perfectionist in many ways, and most excellent at providing notes that you can validate. Okay, so let me see here. Yep, bibliography, well worth it. Again, this is in the 90s, so today I would highly recommend the online etymology dictionary. It's fantastic. It is a must. Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Anyone ever tells you the King James Bible has archaic words, so-called, I highly recommend that you point them to this book, point them to the arguments in this book, and hopefully your faith is strengthened in the Authorized Version. No matter how old you are, 4 years old to 90 years old, and you got the King James Bible. Don't let anyone take it away from you. Peace out. God bless.